F1 cars travel at same speeds aeroplanes use to take off, yet they stay glued to the track. They cost over $9 million on average to build, and then there's the main cost of research and development. In this video we'll dive into the design secrets behind their scary performance, trademark look and high price tag.
Amazing!
Number 10. Front and side wings. An F1's aerodynamics is the most important factor that design engineers have to consider. Controlling aerodynamics at Formula 1's intensity is painfully technical, requiring mastery of downforce and drag. And the front wing is the most important element in this. Its shape creates a downward force called negative lift that keeps front tyres rooted to the ground, much more than it would be with simply the car's weight alone. The front wing is mainly a flat plane and hangs from the nose of the car. It was first introduced by Michael May when he modified his own Porsche Type 550 to prevent it from flying and overturning during races. May's tweak was so successful that he beat all other Porsches in the 1956 Nürburgring 1000 km race. There is a secondary flap positioned at an angle to the wing parallel to the floor, and its angle size has a big impact on the amount of downforce. The side wing, also known as end fences, are extremely important too. These wings are parallel to the nose tip and prevent turbulent vortexes of air from swirling under the car from the front. This shielding keeps the car stable aerodynamically. Number 9. Airbox. Also known as the engine intake, the airbox sits right above the driver's head. It's crucial that air passes through this opening undisturbed at a high velocity, so that the F1's 6 cylinders have good quality air to feed on for combustion. An extra benefit of the airbox is that air entering is more than the engine burns. Because of this surplus, air pressure increases and supercharges the engine, giving it even more power, somewhere in the range of 15 to 20 horsepower. This phenomenon is known as the ram effect. While the airbox's location may look like it's just for aesthetics, an invisible benefit is that it is high enough to escape much of the hot air being released by any car in front, so that cooler and undisturbed air is caught, and thus the engine performs better. Another secret to the airbox's prominent location is the extra room for sponsorship visuals, a big financial advantage. But if that wasn't enough, the airbox doubles up as a blockade to air hitting the rear wing, and reduces turbulence coming from the cockpit and driver's helmet. Overall, this increases rear wing performance. Number 8. Side pod. Travelling at 200 miles per hour takes a lot of power and heat. Side pod openings direct air currents for internal cooling. Chimneys inside push and suck air in steps to cool water and oils. In typical F1 fashion, the side pod doubles as aerodynamic boosters. Its many curved winglets manage airflow and improve downforce. Before the 1972 Lotus, you'll notice Formula 1 cars of the 60s with rounded noses, almost like bathtubs on wheels. This was because cooling systems were stored in the front area of the car, but by moving them to the sides, designers were able to alter the nose into the aerodynamically superior wedge shape. It wasn't until 1978 that Lotus designers realised they could increase performance more by extending the side pod into a long board between the front and back wheelbase. And when added to the effect of the underbody, this helped the Lotus 78 turn corners at high speed while sticking to the road. Number 7. Barge boards. Barge boards are the F1's only parts that do not double as structural components. These sculpted bodywork pieces only serve to maximise aerodynamics and to increase cooling by channeling air towards the side pods. Barge boards smooth over areas vulnerable to dirty air that might otherwise interfere with the rear wing and wheels. They lie along the midsection of the car, in front of the cockpit. They are curved in shape, often connected between the front wheels and side pods. They do a good job of picking up turbulent, swirling air coming from the front wing, front suspension and front wheels, pushing them either around the side pod, which needs undisturbed air for efficient cooling, or towards radiator inlets. Number 6. Underfloor. An F1's underfloor alone produces around 40% of the total downforce acting on the car, pressing it to the ground. The underfloors of Formula 1 cars are all close to the ground at the front. The height increases as you move towards the rear, and at the very back there is a sudden upturn. At fast speeds, this incline has a strange effect. The upward curve forces air to expand, which drops air pressure, making exiting air suck the car's rear to the ground. The car, which has no right not to flip over at terrifying speeds of travel, is instead sucked to the ground like a magnet. Rear tunnels, which are much cleaner than the name sounds, adds to this suction. The tunnels extend from the front of the F1 and exit at the back. Suction due to falling air pressure is caused by the Venturi Effect. This phenomenon was first discovered by the Lotus Type 78 by mistake, during an experiment in London's Imperial's wind tunnel, when the team's long side skirts sagged towards the underfloor. This sagging created an unexpected large downforce and low drag, which is the holy grail of racing aerodynamics. This discovery set the standard for all F1 cars to follow. Number 5. Rear and side wings. F1s are perhaps most known for their trademark rear wing. While it looks cool, it's really a devious feature that adds to the underbody's drag and balances the car along its full length. The wing is actually made up of multiple elements, like the bones of a finger, just with gaps. The lower element can allow some of the inbound air to escape smoothly, while the upper element curves air up and down behind the car, creating downforce. The upper element works aerodynamically like an upside down aeroplane wing and increases rear downforce. It also disrupts airflow from cars behind it, creating a trailing angry mass of air for them to deal with. This is why F1 drivers don't often drive close behind cars in front, and why overtaking can be tricky. Wing elements are adjustable, and this ability is referred to as the DRS or drag reduction system. When a rear flap is opened by remote control, drag elements and this boost in speed can be useful for overtaking a car in front, providing a boost of about 6 to 7.5 miles per hour. The side or end plates have one main job. They create straight line drag, which is crucial for stability. Without these side plates, the car would veer uncontrollably. Number 4. Brakes. F1 drivers are worse than your granddad. They brake at the last possible moment as a norm. So obviously there is no room for inaccuracy. F1 brakes work like your normal car, except they are far more complex, precise and powerful. Pads push with so much force, with up to 5 tons of pressure, equating to 5 Gs. That kind of deceleration is similar to a car hitting a brick wall at 185 miles per hour. To give you a sense of this power, watch this BMW M3 road car versus a BMW F1 braking from 120 miles per hour. That's a gap of 32 meters or 105 feet. To give you an idea of how much pressure F1 brakes are put under, brakes from one F1 brake supplier, Brembo brakes, can reach 1,200 degrees Celsius, about the same temperature as molten lava. To combat this, the brakes are drilled with hundreds of fine holes, which allows heat to dissipate and instead warm up the tyres. More about why that's beneficial later. F1 brakes last on average one race, but sometimes more. Brakes also have brake ducts to help cool them and reduce drag by channeling air through the wheels in a controlled way. Number 3. Steering wheel. Think of this as the most complicated handheld games console you've ever seen, controlling things from rear wing flaps and radio control to talk to engineers, to steering sensitivity. There's even a yellow button known as the overtake button that, like Nitro in the Fast and Furious movies, gives the car a boost of power. If you've ever wondered how drivers safely enter the pit lane after travelling as fast as a jet taking off, there's a button on the right hand side that activates speed limiter, limiting the speed of the car to 50 miles per hour for approaching the pit stop. A driver will have to make a minimum of 50 to 70 adjustments per lap, involving things from gear changes, altering the braking balance when taking corners, positioning, and choosing how much electrical energy comes from the car battery. As a result, F1 drivers go through extensive simulation tests at the beginning of each season, allowing them to get a finger feel. Number 2. Wheels. Formula 1 tyre theory is sometimes referred to as the dark arts. The sheer number of variables including temperature, pressure, driving style, track conditions and weather make it hard to be precise. Teams can choose from 2 types of wet tyres and 5 types of dry tyres. Wet tyres disperse up to 65 litres of water per second. Dry tyres range from hard to ultra soft, which looks slicker than a baby's butt. Surprisingly, the wheels are no longer made of rubber. It's now a composite of synthetic materials, primed to react with the tarmac in a way that makes them grip each other. This material is activated when heat from brakes are funneled to the tyres through holes. F1 teams also use tyre warmers to reach their desired temperature before a race. You might ask why they need to heat up. Imagine walking on a street on a hot day. Warm weather causes composite materials and oils to mix and stick to the tarmac, increasing grip. There's more. Unlike road cars, F1 tyres are not filled with normal air, but with nitrogen, which is a much more stable gas whatever the weather. Lastly, you may have seen the wheels fall off an F1 mid-race, not something you'd expect in a multi-million-pound machine. The wheels are held to the frame via a wheel nut, highly tuned pneumatic guns which are used to screw wheels. They have the torque of a Porsche turbo car, so can literally break your wrist. Engineers rely on skill and judgment to decide if tyres are tight enough. Despite the design contingencies, every once in a while it does fail and wheels fall off. Number 1. Carbon fibre frame. Every part of the F1's car bodywork you can see is made from carbon fibre. Carbon composite reinforcements is also used for the brake discs. Carbon fibre was first used on an F1's full body in the 1981 British Grand Prix.
During that season, John Watson crashed terribly, and only survived because his McLaren had a carbon fibre frame, rather than the weaker aluminium frames his competitors were using.
Carbon fibre is massively low weight compared to steel, but before this crash people doubted carbon fibre's ability to withstand high-speed crashes. The cynics were proven wrong. As it turns out, carbon fibre is much stronger, 5 times more so than steel and aluminium in fact. Carbon fibre bodywork has now been around for 30 years. It's a labour-intensive process to make, involving baking each part in an autoclave oven for 2 to 8 hours, at temperatures of 180 degrees Celsius, and 3 days for the whole process per body part. An F1 car is far more complicated than it looks. Tell me what you thought about this breakdown, and which feature do you think is the most ingenious? Let me know in the comment section down below. Thanks for watching.